The Richardson mansion stood tall on the hill, looking down at the ocean. It was the biggest house in the area. White walls, large windows, and a garden that seemed to go on forever. Inside lived one of the richest families in the country. Robert Richardson owned a big pharmaceutical company. His family had been making medicine for 3 generations. They had more money than they could ever spend, but all the money in the world could not buy them happiness. 15 years ago, Victoria Richardson gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Michael. The delivery went well. Victoria was tired but happy. Robert stood beside her, looking at his son with pride. This baby would one day take over the family business. He would carry on the Richardson name, but something was wrong. The nurses noticed it first. The baby was not moving his arms and legs like other newborns. They ran tests. More doctors came. Robert and Victoria waited, their hearts full of fear. Finally, a specialist gave them the news. Their son had a rare form of paralysis. He was born with it. His body could not move the way other children's bodies could. Victoria cried for days. Robert called every expert he could find. They flew in doctors from other countries. They tried every treatment available. Nothing worked. Michael remained unable to move. His bright blue eyes looked around, taking in the world, but his body would not respond to his commands. The years passed slowly in the Richardson house. Michael grew from a baby to a boy, then to a teenager. His mind was sharp. He was smart, maybe even brilliant. He could speak, though his words came out slow and unclear. He could move his head a little, but his arms and legs stayed still. He spent his days in a wheelchair, dependent on others for everything. Robert threw himself into his work. He donated millions to research on paralysis and rare diseases. He hoped that somehow, somewhere, someone would find a cure for his son. But deep inside, he was losing hope. Victoria struggled in a different way. The happy woman she used to be disappeared. She started taking pills to help her sleep, then pills to help her wake up, then pills to stop the sadness. 5 years after Michael was born, she took too many pills one night. The doctor said it was an accident. Robert was not sure. Either way, Victoria was gone. Robert was alone with his grief and his disabled son. The big house felt empty. A year later, he met Diane at a medical conference. She was a pharmacist, smart and beautiful. She seemed to understand his pain. She was kind to Michael. Robert, lonely and broken, married her quickly. Maybe too quickly. Diane moved into the mansion. She took charge of Michael's care. She hired new nurses and therapists. She personally prepared his special food and supplements. She told Robert these were the best treatments money could buy. Robert, busy with his company and tired from years of worry, trusted her completely. The mansion had many workers. There were gardeners, cooks, security guards, and cleaning staff. Among them was Rosa Martinez. She had worked for the Richardson family since before Michael was born. She cleaned the house and managed the other housekeepers. Rosa was a quiet woman who did her job well. She had a daughter named Elena. Elena was 17 years old. She was in her last year of high school. She was a good student, always curious about how things worked. She wanted to be a doctor one day, though she knew her family could not afford medical school. Her mother worked hard, but they had very little money. Still, Elena dreamed. During summer break, Elena started coming to the mansion with her mother. She helped with cleaning to earn money for college. The first time she saw Michael, she felt sad. He sat in his wheelchair by the window, looking out at the ocean. He looked so alone. Most people in the house treated Michael like he was made of glass. They spoke to him in baby voices or did not speak to him at all. They did things for him without asking what he wanted. But Elena was different. One day, she was cleaning Michael's room. He was sitting by the window as usual. Elena started talking to him like she would talk to anyone else. "The ocean looks beautiful today," she said. "Do you like watching the waves?" Michael turned his head slowly. He looked surprised. People did not usually ask him questions. "Yes," he said. His voice was unclear, but Elena understood. "Me too," she said. "When I was little, my mom brought me to the beach. I tried to count the waves, but there were too many." Michael's lips moved into something like a smile. From that day on, Elena talked to Michael whenever she was in his room. She told him about her school, her dreams of becoming a doctor, and the books she was reading. She asked him about his interests. Slowly, Michael started talking more. He told her about the music he liked and the subjects he studied with his private tutors. He was learning about history and science. He loved learning even though his body kept him trapped. "Do you ever feel angry?" Elena asked one day. She knew it was a bold question, but she was curious. Michael was quiet for a long time. Then he answered. "Every day," he said. "But anger does not help. It just makes things harder." Elena admired his strength. She could not imagine living like he did. Never running, never playing sports, never even being able to feed himself. Yet he kept going. The summer days fell into a pattern. Elena came to the mansion with her mother in the morning. She cleaned and helped around the house. When she had free time, she visited Michael's room. They talked about everything. Michael's eyes became brighter during their conversations. For a few minutes each day, he seemed less trapped. But Elena started noticing something strange. Some days Michael was alert and could talk more clearly. Other days he seemed foggy and tired. His words were harder to understand. His eyes looked dull. She asked the nurses about it. "That is just how his condition is," they told her. "Some days are better than others. We cannot predict it." But Elena's curious mind was not satisfied with that answer. She had always been someone who asked questions and looked for patterns. In school, she loved science because it gave clear answers. She started paying closer attention to Michael's good days and bad days. She also noticed that Diane, Michael's stepmother, was always very focused on his care. Every day, she personally brought him special drinks and supplements. She told everyone these were specially made for his condition. They cost thousands of dollars. "Only the best for Michael," she said. Elena watched as Diane made sure Michael drank every drop. She stood there until he finished. Then she took the empty glass away herself. Something about it felt odd to Elena, though she could not say why. Michael's room was filled with medical equipment. Machines that helped him breathe better at night. Special computers that he could control with his eyes. The latest technology that money could buy, yet he was not getting better. If anything, over the years, he seemed to be getting worse. Robert Richardson rarely came to Michael's room anymore. It hurt too much to see his son this way. He trusted Diane to handle everything. He buried himself in work, staying at the office late into the night. The big mansion felt like a hospital, not a home. Elena saw all of this. She saw the loneliness. She saw the expensive treatments that did not help. She saw how Michael's bright mind was trapped in a body that would not move, and somewhere in the back of her mind a small voice whispered that something was not right. But she was just the maid's daughter. Who would listen to her? Elena could not stop thinking about Michael's changing condition. As the summer continued, she spent more time at the mansion. Her mother was happy to have the help, and Elena was glad to earn money for college. But the real reason she kept coming back was Michael. She started keeping a small notebook in her pocket. Every day she wrote down what she observed. On Monday, Michael seemed alert. His speech was clearer than usual. On Tuesday, after his morning supplements, he became sleepy and confused. On Wednesday, he was better again. The pattern made no sense. Elena tried to talk to the nurses about it. "Have you noticed that Michael is different on different days?" she asked one of them. The nurse, a middle-aged woman named Carol, shrugged. "His condition is unpredictable. The doctors have said this many times. Some days the paralysis affects him more, some days less. There is no pattern to it." But Elena disagreed. There had to be a pattern. Everything in nature had patterns. That is what her science teacher always said. She decided to be more specific in her notes. She wrote down what time Michael seemed alert, what time he became foggy, what he ate and drank. After 2 weeks, she saw it clearly. Michael's worst moments always came a few hours after he took his special supplements. The expensive drinks that Diane prepared for him every morning. Could that be possible? The supplements were supposed to help him. They cost more money than Elena's family made in a month. Surely they could not be making him worse. Elena tried to push the thought away. It seemed crazy. But the more she watched, the more certain she became. There was a connection between those drinks and Michael's bad days. One morning she arrived early at the mansion. Diane was in the kitchen preparing Michael's morning supplement. Elena watched from the doorway. Diane mixed powder from several different containers into a glass. She added water and stirred carefully. The liquid turned a pale yellow color. Diane tasted a tiny drop on her finger, made a face, then added honey to make it sweeter. Nothing looked wrong. But Elena felt uneasy. That afternoon, Elena went to Michael's room during one of his alert periods. He was using his eye-tracking computer, reading an article about space exploration. His eyes moved across the screen, controlling the cursor. "Michael," Elena said quietly, "can I ask you something?" He turned his head toward her. "Of course." Elena sat down in the chair beside his wheelchair. She was nervous. What she was about to say sounded insane, but she had to know. "Do you feel different after you take your morning supplements?" she asked. Michael's expression changed. His eyes widened slightly. He looked at her for a long moment, then looked back at his computer screen. Slowly, using his eye movements, he began to type. Elena watched the words appear on the screen. "Yes. Feel sick after. Head becomes foggy. Cannot think clearly." Elena's heart beat faster. "How long has this been happening?" Michael typed again. "Years. Always thought it was my condition." "But you are right. It happens after the supplements. Have you told anyone?" Elena asked. "Cannot speak well enough to explain. Father is always busy. Diane says supplements are helping me. Doctors believe her." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Michael, I have been keeping notes. Your bad days always follow the supplements, always. That cannot be a coincidence." Michael stared at her. His eyes showed fear and hope mixed together. He typed slowly. "What are you saying?" Elena took a deep breath. "I do not know yet. But something is wrong. I'm sure of it." They sat in silence. Outside, they could hear Diane talking to one of the nurses in the hallway. Elena quickly closed the notepad she had been holding. Over the next few days, Elena could not focus on anything else. She researched online during her breaks. She read about paralysis, about rare conditions, about supplements and medications. She found articles about how some substances could make neurological conditions worse, but nothing quite matched what she was seeing with Michael. Then one night she found something interesting. A medical forum where people discussed rare conditions. She created an account and posted a question. She was careful not to mention Michael or the Richardson family. She pretended she was doing research for a school project. "Can certain supplements cause temporary paralysis or confusion?" she wrote. "What would that look like?" Several people responded with general information. But then 3 days later, someone with the username Dr. Talks Doc sent her a private message. "Your question is interesting," the message said. "Temporary paralysis and confusion can be caused by certain toxins. There are plants and chemicals that affect the nervous system. If someone was exposed to these regularly, it could look like a neurological disease." "Why are you asking?" Elena's hands shook as she typed her response. "Just curious for a project." "What kind of toxins?" The person sent back a long message. They explained that certain plant compounds, when given in small amounts over time, could cause progressive nerve damage. The damage could look like a disease someone was born with. But if the toxin was removed, the person might recover, at least partially. "The scary thing," the message continued, "is that these toxins are hard to detect. They break down in the body quickly. Unless someone knows to look for them specifically, they would never be found. And most doctors would not think to look. They would just assume the patient had a natural disease." Elena read the message 10 times. Her mind was racing. Could this be what was happening to Michael? But that would mean someone was poisoning him. Who would do such a thing, and why? She thought about Diane, the stepmother who personally prepared every supplement, who made sure Michael drank every drop, who stood and watched until he finished. No, that was impossible. Diane was his stepmother. She was supposed to care for him. Besides, what reason would she have to hurt Michael? But Elena could not shake the feeling. She went back to her research. She learned that some poisons could be hidden in health supplements. They could be mixed with vitamins and minerals, making them impossible to detect by taste or smell. She needed to talk to Michael again, but this time she had to be very careful. The next day, Elena waited until Diane left the house for a meeting. She went to Michael's room. He was looking tired. It was one of his bad days. "Michael," she said softly, "I need to show you something." She pulled out her notebook and showed him all her observations. The dates, the times, the pattern of his good and bad days, all connected to the supplements. Michael's eyes moved slowly across the pages. Even in his foggy state, she could see understanding dawn on his face. "I know this sounds crazy," Elena said, "but I think something in your supplements is making you sick. Not helping you, making you sick." Michael tried to speak but could not form the words. He looked frustrated. Elena helped him get to his computer. After several minutes, he had typed a message. Not born this way. Elena stared at the words. What do you mean? Michael's fingers twitched as he tried to type more. It took a long time. Have memories, moving his baby, playing. Then everything stopped. Got sick, Mother cried. But I remember moving. Elena felt dizzy. Michael, babies do not usually remember things from when they were so young. I remember, he typed. Something happened. Made me sick. Not born like this. When did you get sick? Elena asked. Very young. Maybe 1 year old. Mother gave me new medicine. Special vitamin. After that, everything changed. Elena's blood ran cold. Who gave you the medicine? Michael looked at her. His eyes were clear despite his foggy state. He typed one word. Diane. But Diane only married your father 5 years ago, Elena said, confused. Michael typed again. No. Diane knew our family before. She was Mother's pharmacist. She recommended vitamins for me when I was baby. Said they would make me strong. After I took them, I got sick. She disappeared for years, then came back after Mother died. Father did not remember her from before I did, but cannot speak well enough to tell him. Elena felt like the floor was dropping beneath her. If what Michael was saying was true, Diane had been poisoning him since he was a baby. For 15 years, but why? What could she possibly gain? Michael, why would she do this? Elena asked. Michael typed slowly. Father's will. If I am disabled, Diane controls everything if Father dies. She wanted to marry him. Needed me to stay sick. We need to tell someone, Elena said. Your father. The police, anyone. No proof, Michael typed. Just your notes and my words. I cannot speak clearly. You are the maid's daughter. Who will believe us? He was right. They needed real proof. Not just observations. Not just suspicions. They needed evidence that would convince people with power. What if, Elena said slowly, what if you stop taking the supplements? Just for a few days. To see what happens. Michael's eyes showed fear. Diane makes sure I drink them. She watches. What if you pretended to drink them? Elena suggested. Spit them out later. Hide them somehow. Just for a few days. If you get better, that is proof something is wrong with them. Michael thought about this. Finally, he typed, dangerous. If Diane finds out, she might do something worse. More dangerous than being poisoned every day for 15 years? Elena asked. Michael could not argue with that. After a long silence, he typed, okay, we try. But we must be very careful. Diane cannot know, Elena nodded. I will help you. Whatever you need, they made a plan. It was risky and scary, but it was the only way to find the truth. Elena left his room feeling both terrified and determined. The plan was simple but dangerous. Michael would pretend to drink his supplements while Diane watched. Then when she left, he would spit the liquid into a container that Elena would hide in his room. They would do this for 1 week and see if Michael's condition improved. Elena found a plastic bottle with a tight lid. She hid it inside a decorative vase on Michael's windowsill. The vase was tall enough that no one would see the bottle unless they looked inside. The first morning of their plan, Elena's hands shook as she cleaned the hallway outside Michael's room. Through the open door, she watched Diane bring in the yellow supplement drink. Good morning, Michael, Diane said in her sweet voice. Time for your medicine. She held the glass to Michael's lips. He drank slowly. Elena could see him taking small sips, holding the liquid in his mouth. Diane watched carefully, making sure he swallowed. Michael's throat moved, but Elena knew he was only swallowing some of it. He was keeping most of it in his cheeks like a squirrel storing nuts. All done, Diane said, checking the empty glass. Good boy. This will help you feel better. She left the room, passing Elena in the hallway without really seeing her. People like Diane never really saw people like Elena. Elena waited 5 minutes, then went into Michael's room. She closed the door quietly. Michael's face was red from holding the liquid in his mouth. Elena grabbed the plastic bottle from the vase and held it to his lips. He spit out the supplement. It was thick and bitter-smelling. Are you okay? Elena whispered. Michael nodded. His eyes were watering, but he managed a small smile. They did this every morning for a week. It was terrifying. Each time, Elena worried that Diane would come back and catch them. Each time, her heart raced as she hid the bottle back in the vase. By the 3rd day, Elena noticed a change. Michael seemed more alert in the afternoons. His words were clearer. On the 4th day, she saw his fingers move more than usual. By the 5th day, Michael could hold a pen for a few seconds. It is working, Elena whispered excitedly. You are getting better. Michael's eyes were brighter than she had ever seen them. Using his computer, he typed, I can feel my arms. Not much, but something. I have not felt my arms in years. On the 6th day, something amazing happened. Michael moved his hand across the table to reach his water glass. It was slow and shaky, but he did it himself. For the first time in 15 years, he moved his own arm with purpose. Elena wanted to cry with joy, but they had to stay quiet. If anyone noticed Michael's improvement too soon, Diane might become suspicious. On the 7th day, Elena took the bottle of collected supplements. She had been storing them in her backpack, hidden under books and clothes. The bottle was now half full of the yellow liquid. This was their evidence, but they needed to get it tested. Elena had a friend from school whose mother worked at a medical laboratory. She called her friend and made up a story. My mom found some old vitamins in our cabinet, Elena said. We want to make sure they are not spoiled or contaminated. Can your mother test them? Her friend was hesitant. Those tests cost money, Elena. I know. I have been saving for my summer job, please. My mom is worried about taking bad vitamins. Finally, her friend agreed to ask. 2 days later, Elena received a phone call. Her friend's mother had agreed to run a basic screening test. It would cost $200. Elena had exactly $230 saved for college. She paid the money without hesitation. Some things were more important than college savings. The wait for the test results was the longest week of Elena's life. Meanwhile, Michael continued to improve without the supplements. He could now move both arms slightly. His speech was much clearer. He could sit up straighter in his wheelchair, but this created a new problem. The nurses started to notice. Michael seems different lately, Carol, the nurse, said to Diane one afternoon. He appears more responsive. His motor functions seem improved. Elena, who was cleaning nearby, saw Diane's expression change. For just a moment, her face showed something cold and calculating. Then she smiled. Really? How wonderful, Diane said. Perhaps the new supplement formula is finally working. I recently increased the dosage. Elena's blood turned to ice. Diane was planning to give Michael more poison. That night, Elena had to make a decision. The test results were not back yet. But Michael was in danger. She had to tell someone, but who? The nurses trusted Diane. The other staff members would not believe her. That left only one person, Robert Richardson, Michael's father. Elena had never spoken directly to Mr. Richardson. He was always at work or locked in his office. He was a powerful man who owned a huge company. She was nobody, the daughter of his maid. Why would he listen to her? But she had no choice. The next evening, Elena waited outside Robert's office. Her mother had left for the day. Most of the staff was gone. Elena knew Robert always worked late. Through the door, she could hear him on a phone call, talking about business things she did not understand. She waited for an hour. Finally, the office door opened. Robert stepped out, looking tired. He was a tall man in his 50s, with gray hair and expensive clothes. He looked at Elena with surprise. Can I help you? He asked. He did not sound unkind, just confused about why the cleaning girl was standing outside his office. Elena's mouth went dry. Her prepared speech disappeared from her mind. She just blurted it out. Your son is being poisoned. Robert stared at her. Excuse me? Michael. Someone is poisoning him. Has been for years. I have proof. Robert's expression hardened. Young lady, that is a very serious accusation. Do you understand what you are saying? Yes, sir, please just listen to me for 5 minutes. Then if you think I am crazy, I will leave and never mention it again. Something in her voice must have reached him. Robert looked at his watch, sighed, and gestured back into his office. 5 minutes. Elena followed him inside. The office was huge, with dark wood furniture and paintings on the walls. Robert sat behind his desk. Elena remained standing. She told him everything. About Michael's good and bad days. About the pattern she noticed. About how his condition improved when he stopped taking the supplements. She showed him her notebook with all her observations. She told him about the test she had ordered. Robert listened without interrupting. His face showed no emotion. When she finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. These are serious accusations, he finally said. You are talking about my wife, I know, sir. But please look at the evidence. Michael has been improving this week. Asked the nurses. They noticed it too. The nurses told Diane that Michael seems better, Robert said slowly. Diane said it was because the supplements were finally working. That is not true, sir. Michael has not been taking the supplements. That is why he is better. Robert stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the dark ocean. Do you know what you are asking me to believe? That my wife has been poisoning my son, that she has been doing it for years. That Michael's entire condition is not natural but caused by her. I know it sounds impossible, Elena said. But look at Michael. Really look at him. He is better. After just 1 week without those supplements, he can move his arms. He can speak clearly. Does that not seem strange to you? Robert turned to face her. His eyes were hard. If what you are saying is true, then I have been letting someone poison my son for 15 years. I failed him. I failed my first wife. Do you understand what you are telling me? Elena saw the pain in his face. Sir, you trusted someone you thought cared for your family. That is not your fault. But now you know. You can stop it. You can save Michael. Robert walked to his desk and picked up his phone. Elena thought he might be calling security to throw her out. Instead, he called someone else. Dr. Morrison, this is Robert Richardson. I need you to come to my house right away. Yes, tonight. I need a complete examination of my son. Full blood work. Everything. And I need it kept completely confidential. No, do not tell anyone you are coming. Use the side entrance. He hung up and looked at Elena. You said you ordered a test? Yes, sir. The results should come back in a few days. I am having my personal doctor examine Michael tonight. If there is any truth to what you are saying, he will find it. But Elena, his voice became stern. If you are wrong about this, if you are making false accusations against my wife, there will be serious consequences. Do you understand? Yes, sir. I understand. Good. Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to act normal. Do not let Diane know we have spoken. Do not tell Michael yet either. Can you do that? Elena nodded. Yes, sir. Go home. Come back tomorrow as usual. We will speak again after I have the doctor's report. Elena left the office on shaking legs. She had done it. She had told someone with power. But now the waiting began. And waiting was the hardest part. That night, Elena could not sleep. She kept thinking about what might happen. What if the doctor found nothing? What if Diane somehow found out? What if Elena had just made things worse for Michael? But there was no going back now. The truth was going to come out one way or another. Elena barely slept that night. She kept imagining what was happening at the mansion. Was the doctor examining Michael right now? What would he find? She got up early and dressed carefully, trying to look normal even though her stomach was full of butterflies. When she arrived at the mansion with her mother, everything looked the same as always. The morning sun shone on the white walls. Gardeners trimmed the hedges. The house was quiet and peaceful. But Elena knew that underneath something huge was happening. She went about her cleaning duties, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept expecting Robert or Diane to call her into her room, but the morning passed normally. Diane came down for breakfast, smiling and pleasant as always. Robert had already left for work, according to the cook. Elena went to Michael's room to clean. He looked at her with wide eyes full of questions. She shook her head slightly, warning him to stay quiet. She could not risk saying anything where someone might hear, but Michael understood. He had lived in this house his whole life. He knew how to be patient. Around noon, Elena's phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Come to my office at 3 p.m., side entrance. Tell your mother you are running an errand. Elena's heart started racing. Robert Richardson wanted to see her. That meant the doctor had found something. But was it good news or bad news? The afternoon crawled by. Finally, at 3 o'clock, Elena told her mother she needed to go to the pharmacy to buy something. Her mother barely looked up from the floors she was mopping. Elena walked around to the side of the mansion. There was a small entrance that led directly to Robert's office wing. The door was unlocked. She slipped inside. Robert was waiting in his office. He looked like he had not slept at all. His eyes were red and his expensive suit was wrinkled. On his desk were papers and medical reports. Sit down, Elena, he said quietly. She sat, her hands gripping the armrests of the chair. Dr. Morrison examined Michael last night. Robert began. He took blood samples. He ran tests. He found something very interesting. Elena held her breath. Michael's blood contains traces of a compound that should not be there. A plant-based toxin. It affects the nervous system. The doctor says it is very rare and very hard to detect unless you know exactly what to look for. Elena felt relief and horror wash over her at the same time. She was right, but that meant Michael had been poisoned for years. There is more, Robert continued. His voice was shaking now. The doctor looked at Michael's old medical records. He noticed something no one thought to question before. When Michael was born, he was completely normal. Perfect, actually. But at his 1-year checkup, suddenly he had severe paralysis. The doctors assumed it was a condition that showed up late. But Dr. Morrison says that is very unusual. Most congenital paralysis shows up at birth or within weeks. What does that mean? Elena asked, though she thought she knew. It means Michael was not born paralyzed. Something caused it when he was 1 year old, something he was exposed to around that time. Robert's hands clenched into fists. I called the hospital this morning. I got Michael's old medical records from when he was a baby. Do you know who the attending pharmacist was? Who recommended special vitamins for him? Elena's throat was tight. Diane. Yes, Diane. She worked at the hospital pharmacy 15 years ago. She met Victoria when Victoria was pregnant with Michael. She suggested special prenatal vitamins. After Michael was born, she recommended infant supplements. Top of the line, expensive. Victoria trusted her. Robert stood up and walked to the window. His back was to Elena, but she could see his shoulders shaking. After Michael became sick, Diane left the hospital. Moved away. We forgot about her. I forgot about her. 10 years later, she showed up at a medical conference. She seemed surprised to see me. She pretended not to remember our family. I believed her. Victoria had just died. I was lonely and broken. Diane was kind. She was beautiful. She seemed to understand my pain. He turned back to face Elena. Tears were running down his face. I married the woman who destroyed my son's life. I brought her into our home. I trusted her with Michael's care, and she has been poisoning him this entire time. For 15 years, Elena did not know what to say. What could anyone say to something so horrible? Why, Robert asked, his voice breaking. Why would she do this to a child? To my son? Michael thinks it is about money, Elena said quietly. Your will. If Michael is disabled and you die, Diane would control everything. Robert closed his eyes. My will, of course. I changed it after we married. If I die while Michael is still disabled and dependent, Diane becomes his guardian. She would control his inheritance. The company. Everything. He sat back down heavily. She has been slowly poisoning my son for 15 years so that she could steal his future and our fortune. They sat in silence. The weight of the truth was crushing. I have to call the police, Robert finally said. But I need more proof. The blood test shows toxin in his system, but a good lawyer could argue it came from anywhere. We need to prove the supplements are poisoned. I sent a sample to be tested, Elena reminded him. The results should come back soon. How soon? Maybe today or tomorrow, Robert nodded. Okay, here is what we are going to do. I am going to set up cameras in Michael's room. Hidden cameras. We will record Diane giving him the supplements. We will record everything she says and does. Then when your test results come back, we will have everything we need. What about Michael? Elena asked. Should we tell him? He already knows something is happening. Dr. Morrison had to examine him last night. Michael is smart. He has figured it out. Robert's expression softened slightly. Michael told the doctor about you. About how you noticed his patterns. How you kept notes. How you risked everything to help him. Elena felt embarrassed. I just did what was right. You did what I should have done years ago, Robert said bitterly. You paid attention. You asked questions. You cared enough to look for the truth. That afternoon, Robert had security install tiny cameras in Michael's room. They were hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. No one would ever notice them. Elena went back to work, trying to act normal. She saw Diane in the hallway and had to force herself to smile and nod. Diane smiled back, completely unaware that her entire plan was unraveling. That evening, Elena's phone rang. It was her friend from school. Elena, my mom finished the tests on that vitamin sample you gave us. She says you need to bring those vitamins to the police right away. Why? What did she find? She says there is poison in them. Like serious poison. Whoever takes these vitamins is being poisoned. Elena, where did you really get these? I cannot explain now, Elena said. But thank you. Thank your mother for me. She immediately called Robert's number. He answered on the first ring. The test results are back, Elena said. The supplements are poisoned. Come to my office now. 10 minutes later, Elena handed Robert the written test results her friend's mother had sent. Robert read them, his face turning white, then red with anger. It is all here, he said. The type of toxin. The amount. This is enough to cause serious neurological damage over time. This is attempted murder. What do we do now? Elena asked. Now, Robert said, we wait for Diane to poison my son one more time. And we catch her on camera doing it. The next morning felt surreal. Elena came to work knowing that this was the day everything would change. She cleaned and worked, watching the clock. At 9 a.m., like every morning, Diane prepared Michael's supplement in the kitchen. Elena stayed far away. She did not want Diane to notice her watching. Diane carried the yellow drink upstairs to Michael's room. The hidden cameras recorded everything. Robert watched from his office on a laptop screen. Elena stood beside him, her heart pounding. They watched as Diane entered Michael's room with the poisoned drink. Good morning, Michael, she said sweetly on the screen. Time for your supplement. Michael looked at her. He had been told what was happening. He knew he had to stay calm and act normal one more time. Diane held the glass to his lips. Drink it all. You have been doing so much better lately. The supplements are really working. Let us not stop now. Michael pretended to drink, but Elena knew he was holding it in his mouth again just like before. Good, Diane said. All gone. You are such a good patient, Michael. She left the room. On the screen, they watched Michael spit the liquid into the bottle Elena had left for him. Robert stopped the recording. His face was like stone. I have everything I need, he said. The test results proving the supplements are poisoned. The video of Diane giving them to Michael. The doctor's report showing toxin in his blood. It is time to call the police. An hour later, police cars arrived at the mansion. Not the regular police from town, but detectives from the city. Robert had called them personally and explained everything. They arrested Diane in the kitchen. She was making lunch, humming to herself, completely unaware. When the detectives told her she was under arrest for attempted murder, her face went white, then red. Then she started screaming, "This is insane. I have done nothing wrong. I love Michael. I have been caring for him. Ma'am, we have evidence that the supplements you have been giving Michael Richardson contain poison," one detective said calmly. "We have video of you administering these supplements. We have test results showing the poison in his system." Diane's eyes darted around the room. The weeks after Diane's arrest were chaos. The story was all over the news. Millionaire's wife poisoned stepson for inheritance. Reporters camped outside the Richardson mansion. They tried to talk to anyone who came in or out. Elena and her mother had to use a back entrance to avoid the cameras. The police investigation uncovered even more horrible truths. They found Diane's old journals from 15 years ago. In them, she had written about meeting Robert and Victoria at the hospital. She had seen how rich they were. She had made a plan. First, she would get close to the family by being Victoria's helpful pharmacist. Then she would slowly poison baby Michael, making him sick enough to need constant care. She hoped this would stress the marriage. Maybe Robert and Victoria would divorce. Then she could step in, but Victoria had not left Robert. She had stayed, getting more and more depressed as her son stayed sick. So Diane had changed her plan. She had given Victoria sleeping pills, stronger and stronger doses. She had made Victoria dependent on them. Then one night she had given Victoria too many. The doctors called it an accidental overdose, but it was murder. Diane had waited a year, then came back into Robert's life. She pretended not to remember the family. Robert, broken and lonely, had fallen for her act. And once she married him, she continued poisoning Michael to secure her control over the inheritance. The police said it was one of the most evil plans they had ever seen. Diane had destroyed a child's entire life, killed his mother and deceived his father, all for money. Michael was rushed to a special hospital in the city. Dr. Morrison and a team of specialists worked to undo the damage of 15 years of poisoning. It would not be easy. The toxin had affected his nervous system for most of his life. Some damage might be permanent, but there was hope. Within the first week of treatment, Michael regained more movement in his arms. By the second week, he could grip objects with his hands. By the third week, he could feel his legs again. The feeling was faint like pins and needles, but it was there. Elena visited him in the hospital every day after school started. She had to go back to her classes, but she spent every free moment with Michael. They talked for hours. Michael's speech had become almost normal. His voice was still a bit slow, but his words were clear. "I remember being a baby," Michael told her one day. "I remember running around, playing with toys. Then everything changed. I thought it was a dream, but it was real. I could move once, before she took it away from me." "You will move again," Elena said firmly. "The doctors say you are making amazing progress." "Because of you," Michael said, looking at her with gratitude. "If you had not noticed the patterns, if you had not kept notes, if you had not been brave enough to speak up, I would still be in that wheelchair. Getting worse every day until the poison finally killed me." Elena felt embarrassed by his praise. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No," Michael said. "Most people see what they expect to see. They do not ask questions. They do not look deeper. You did. You saved my life." Robert Richardson threw himself into helping his son recover. He closed many of his business deals to spend time at the hospital. He talked to Michael for hours, trying to make up for the years he had been absent. He cried a lot. He apologized a lot. "I failed you," Robert told his son. "I was so busy with work, so lost in my grief over your mother, that I did not see what was happening in my own house." "You trusted someone you loved," Michael said. "That is not failure. That is being human." The trial came 6 months later. Diane's lawyers tried to make deals, but Robert refused. He wanted her to face justice for everything she had done. The evidence was overwhelming. The poisoned supplements, the video recordings, the test results, Diane's own journals. She was found guilty of attempted murder, murder in the first degree for Victoria's death, and fraud. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. On the day of sentencing, Elena sat in the courtroom. Diane looked at her one last time before being led away. There was no hatred in her eyes anymore, just emptiness. "She destroyed so many lives," Elena's mother whispered, including her own. Michael's recovery was slow but steady. After 6 months of intensive therapy, he could walk short distances with a walker. After a year, he could walk with a cane. The doctors said he might always have some weakness in his legs. 15 years of nerve damage could not be completely undone. But he was walking. He was moving. He was free. The day Michael walked out of the hospital on his own with just a cane for support, there were tears and cheers. News cameras captured the moment. The boy who had spent 15 years in a wheelchair was walking again. Robert Richardson changed after everything that happened. He stepped back from his company and focused on his family. But he also started something new. He created the Victoria Richardson Foundation for Poisoning Awareness and Rare Neurological Conditions. The foundation had 2 missions. First, to help doctors learn to question diagnoses and look deeper when things did not make sense. Second, to help victims of poisoning get the care they needed. Robert donated millions to the foundation. It became his way of turning their tragedy into something that could help others. Elena's life changed too. Robert insisted on paying for her college education. Full scholarship, no strings attached. She could go to any school she wanted, study anything she wanted. "You saved my son's life," Robert said. "This is the least I can do." But Elena knew it was more than that. Robert felt guilty about not protecting Michael. Helping Elena was his way of honoring what she had done. Elena chose to study medicine. She wanted to become a doctor who asked questions, who looked for patterns, who did not accept easy answers. She wanted to be the kind of doctor who might save someone else the way she had saved Michael. Michael recovered enough to attend college too. He studied business and law. He wanted to take over his father's company one day, but he wanted to run it differently. He wanted to focus on medicines that helped people, not just medicines that made money. But more than business school or therapy or recovery, Michael focused on rebuilding his life. For 15 years, he had been trapped. Now he was free. He went to movies. He went to restaurants. He traveled. He did all the things he had missed, and through it all, Elena was there. They had formed a bond that went beyond friendship. They had been through something terrible together and come out stronger. They understood each other in a way few people could. On Elena's last day working at the mansion before leaving for college, Michael asked to speak with her in the garden. It was a beautiful summer evening. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky orange and pink. They sat on a bench overlooking the water. Michael still used his cane, but he walked to the bench on his own. Elena watched him with pride. She remembered when he could not move at all. "I have been thinking about everything that happened," Michael said, "about how different my life could have been if you had not been curious, if you had not cared enough to ask questions, if you had not been brave." "You were brave too," Elena said. "You trusted me when you had no reason to. You went along with the plan even though it was dangerous. We made a good team," Michael smiled. "We still do." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. "I am scared about going to college," Elena admitted. "Everyone there will be from rich families? They will have had advantages I never had. What if I do not belong?" "You belong anywhere you choose to be," Michael said firmly. "You are smarter and braver than anyone I know. Those rich kids do not stand a chance." Elena laughed. It felt good to laugh. For so long, everything had been serious and scary. Now they could laugh again. "What will you do while I am gone?" she asked. "Physical therapy, business classes, learning to run a company that actually helps people instead of just making money." He paused. "And waiting for you to come back on holiday so we can catch up." "I will call you every week," Elena promised. "I know you will." As the sun set, they talked about their dreams for the future. Michael wanted to change how pharmaceutical companies operated. Elena wanted to become a doctor who really listened to patients. They both wanted to help people. They both wanted to make sure nothing like what happened to Michael ever happened to anyone else. Years later, Elena graduated from medical school at the top of her class. She specialized in toxicology and neurology. She became an expert in rare poisoning cases. She saved lives. She asked questions other doctors did not think to ask. She looked for patterns. Michael took over his father's company when Robert retired. But it was a different company now. Michael focused on affordable medicines and ethical practices. He refused to put profit over people's health. Some investors complained that he was not making enough money. Michael did not care. He had seen what greed could do. He would not let his company be part of that. The Richardson Foundation grew and grew. It helped hundreds of families dealing with rare conditions. It trained thousands of doctors to be more observant and questioning. It changed how medicine was practiced. And through all of this, Elena and Michael stayed close. They talked regularly. They supported each other through hard times. They celebrated each other's victories. The maid's daughter and the millionaire's son, brought together by tragedy, bonded by truth, and connected by an unbreakable friendship.